Every meal she offered was her heart reaching out. Every refusal was his grief pulling away. One dinner changed everything. Subscribe to Wild Sky Stories' new emotional tales every day. The first time Maeve Sullivan offered to cook for Samuel Harding, the autumn sun was setting over the dusty streets of Cedar Hollow, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. She stood on the porch of her father's general store, wiping flour from her hands onto her apron, watching him tie his horse to the post outside. Samuel had ridden into town 3 months prior, a man carrying grief like a second skin. He worked at the livery stable, slept in the small room above it, and spoke to no one unless absolutely necessary. But Maeve noticed him. She noticed how he always bought the same provisions, how he never lingered, how his eyes held the kind of sorrow that made her chest ache for reasons she could not explain. "Mr. Harding," she called out, her voice gentle but steady, "I made too much stew tonight. Would you like to come have supper with my family?" He paused, his hand frozen on the leather of his saddle. When he turned, his dark eyes met hers, and for a moment, something flickered there, something alive. But then it was gone, replaced by that familiar wall he built between himself and the world. "Thank you kindly, Miss Sullivan, but I have to decline." She watched him ride away, and something in her heart refused to give up. The weeks passed, and Maeve found herself creating reasons to see him. She brought fresh bread to the livery stable, claiming her mother had baked too many loaves. She offered him pie when he came to pick up supplies, insisting the apples would go bad if someone did not eat them soon. Each time, Samuel refused with that same polite distance, that same careful wall. "You do not have to keep doing this," he said one gray November afternoon when she appeared with a pot of chicken and dumplings wrapped in cloth to keep it warm. "Doing what?" "Trying to feed me." Maeve set the pot down on the wooden fence and looked at him directly, her hazel eyes unwavering. "Everyone needs someone to care for them, Mr. Harding, even men who pretend they do not." His jaw tightened. "I do not pretend anything. I simply prefer to take care of myself. That is a lonely way to live. Lonely suits me fine." She retrieved her pot and walked away, but she did not give up. She could not explain why this stubborn, broken man had taken root in her heart, but he had, and Maeve Sullivan was not a woman who abandoned things she loved. Christmas came to Cedar Hollow with the first snow of the season. The townspeople gathered in the church for carols and celebration, and Maeve saw Samuel standing at the edge of the crowd, watching but not participating. She wove through the people until she reached him. "There is a Christmas dinner at our house tomorrow evening," she said softly. "My mother is roasting a goose. My father will tell stories that are only half true. It will be warm and loud and full of laughter." She paused. "I would very much like you to be there." Samuel looked down at her, and in the candlelight of the church she could see the war waging behind his eyes. For a moment she thought he would say yes. For a moment she saw the man he might have been before whatever tragedy had carved him hollow. "I cannot," he whispered. "Cannot or will not." He did not answer. He simply turned and walked out into the falling snow, leaving Maeve standing alone with her hope slowly freezing in her chest. January was bitter cold, and Maeve's patience began to wear thin, though her love did not diminish. She found him one evening at the livery, brushing down a chestnut mare with methodical, almost mechanical strokes. "Why do you keep refusing me?" she demanded, no longer hiding behind offers of food. "Why do you push away everyone who tries to get close?" Samuel's hand stilled on the horse's flank. "Because I destroy everything I touch. That is not true." "You do not know me, Miss Sullivan." "Then let me know you." Her voice cracked with frustration and longing. "Let me cook you a meal. Let me sit across from you at a table. Let me ask you questions and learn your stories. That is all I am asking for. Just a chance." He turned to face her, and she saw moisture glistening in his eyes, quickly blinked away. "I had a wife," he said, his voice rough. "Her name was Catherine. She used to cook for me every night. She said it was her way of showing love, and one night while she was preparing supper, while I was out riding for pleasure instead of staying home like I should have, a fire started in our kitchen. I came back to find nothing but ash and a gravestone to dig. Maeve felt tears spill down her cheeks. Samuel, every time you offer to cook for me, every time you try to take care of me, I see her, I smell the smoke, I hear her voice calling for me when I was not there to answer. He shook his head. I cannot do it again. I cannot let someone else in just to lose them. She stepped closer, close enough to touch him, though she kept her hands at her sides. You are not responsible for her death. You are not cursed. You are just a man who loved someone and lost her. And I am so sorry for that. But pushing away everyone who cares about you will not bring her back. It will only ensure you die alone. Maybe that is what I deserve. No, Maeve said firmly. No one deserves that. She left him there that night, but something had shifted. The wall between them had cracked, just a little. February brought a thaw to the frozen ground, and a strange new tension between them. Samuel began to linger when he came to the general store. He asked Maeve about her day, about her dreams, about the books she liked to read. He did not accept her invitations to dinner, but he no longer fled from her presence. One afternoon, he found her sitting behind the store, crying. Her father's health had taken a turn, and the doctor's words had not been hopeful. Samuel sat down beside her on the cold ground, not speaking, not offering empty comfort, just being there. After a long while, he reached over and took her hand in his. My father used to say that grief is love with nowhere to go, he murmured, but I think he was wrong. Grief is love looking for a new home. Maeve squeezed his hand and leaned her head against his shoulder. Let me cook for you, she whispered. Please, just once. Let me show you that love does not always end in loss. Samuel was quiet for a long time. Then, so softly she almost did not hear it, he said, All right. The dinner was nothing elaborate. Roasted chicken with herbs from her mother's garden, mashed potatoes swimming in butter, green beans seasoned with salt and a touch of bacon fat, fresh bread still warm from the oven, apple cider in mismatched cups. They sat across from each other at the small table in the back of the general store, the lantern light casting golden shadows on the walls. Samuel ate slowly, deliberately, as if tasting each bite not just with his tongue but with his whole being. This is... He stopped, his voice catching. Good? Maeve offered hopefully. This is the first home-cooked meal I have had in 3 years. Tears slipped down her cheeks again, but they were different tears now. She reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. There can be more, as many as you want, every night for the rest of our lives if you will let me. He looked at her then with eyes that had finally stopped running from the light. I do not deserve you, Maeve Sullivan. Perhaps not, she said with a small smile, but I am offering anyway. For the first time since she had known him, Samuel Harding laughed. It was a rusty sound, unpracticed, but beautiful. And when he lifted her hand to his lips and pressed a kiss to her knuckles, Maeve felt her heart begin to beat in a rhythm she had never known before. Spring arrived in a riot of wildflowers and warm breezes. Samuel courted Maeve properly, with Sunday walks and evening conversations on her family's porch. He began to let others in as well, joining the men at the saloon for cards, helping the widow Thompson repair her fence, becoming part of the fabric of Cedar Hollow, instead of just a ghost haunting its edges. And then, in late April, everything changed. A letter arrived from a town called Silver Creek, 3 days' ride west. Samuel's brother had died, leaving behind a ranch, a herd of cattle, and no one to run the operation. Samuel stood in the general store, the letter shaking in his hands, and Maeve watched his face as he read. I have to go, he said finally. I have to see to my brother's affairs, settle the estate. It could take months. Then I will wait, Maeve said immediately. Samuel shook his head. You should not. You should find someone who can stay. Someone who is not always being called away by ghosts of the past. Cold fear gripped her heart. Do not do this. Do not use this as an excuse to run again. I am not running. I am being realistic. You deserve better than waiting for a man who might not come back. That is my choice to make, not yours. But Samuel's eyes had already begun to rebuild that wall, brick by brick. I will write to you, he said. When things are settled, I will send word. He rode out of Cedar Hollow the next morning, before the sun had fully risen. Maeve watched him go from her bedroom window, her hands pressed against the cold glass, her breath fogging the view until he disappeared over the horizon. She waited through May, June, July. No letters came. August brought drought and despair, and Maeve began to wonder if she had imagined everything, if the man who had sat at her table and eaten her cooking and laughed with her had been nothing but a dream. Her father's health continued to decline. The store required more and more of her attention. She had suitors now, local boys who had grown into men, who offered her stability and presence and futures she could see clearly. Her mother urged her to consider them. Samuel Harding was a good man, her mother said gently one September evening. But good men who disappear are still gone. You cannot build a life on a ghost. Maeve knew her mother was right. She knew it in her bones, in the practical part of her that had always balanced the store's accounts and planned for hard winters. But her heart, stubborn and foolish, refused to let go. And then October came, bringing with it the first frost and a rider on a familiar chestnut mare. Samuel Harding looked different, thinner, older, with new lines around his eyes and gray threading through his dark hair. He tied his horse to the same post where he had tied it the day Maeve first spoke to him, and he stood there, not approaching, just waiting. Maeve walked out onto the porch, her apron still on, her hair escaping from its pins. She did not run to him. She did not smile. She simply stood there and waited for him to speak. I wrote you 17 letters, Samuel said, his voice rough with exhaustion and something that sounded like desperation. I gave them to a man named Harrison to mail. He took my money and burned them all. I did not find out until last month, when I found the ashes in his fireplace. 17 letters, 17 letters. One for every week I was gone. I told you about the ranch, about my brother's widow, who I helped relocate to her family in Colorado, about the cattle I sold, about the money I put in a bank so I could come back here and buy a piece of land and build a house and ask you to marry me. Maeve's breath caught in her throat. You were coming back? I was always coming back. He took a step forward. You are the first person who made me want to stop running. The first person who made me believe that love does not have to end in ash and graves. I would have crawled back to you if I had to. I almost did. Why did it take you so long? Because I wanted to come back as a man who could provide for you, who could offer you a future instead of just a past full of pain. He pulled a folded paper from his coat pocket. I bought the Miller property. 40 acres, a small house that needs work, enough land for cattle and a garden. I bought it for you, for us. If you will still have me. Maeve felt the tears coming, the same tears that had been her constant companion for months, but different now. You should have written to someone else. You should have found a way to send word. I know. I was a fool. I was so focused on doing things properly that I forgot the most important thing. He was in front of her now, close enough to touch. I forgot to trust that you would wait for me. I forgot that you had already proven 100 times over that you would not give up on me. She reached up and touched his face, feeling the rough stubble against her palm, the warmth of his skin. I almost did, she admitted. I almost let them convince me you were not coming back, but you did not. No, I did not. Samuel covered her hand with his. Maeve Sullivan, I have spent years refusing the love you offered me. I have pushed you away. I have made you cry. I have made you wait far longer than any woman should have to wait. But I am here now, and I am not leaving. Not ever again. I want you to cook for me, Eve. Eerie night for the rest of my life. I want to sit across from you at our table and watch you smile. I want to grow old with you, and when my time comes, I want to die knowing I spent my years with someone who loved me enough to never give up. Is that a proposal? It is a promise. The proposal comes with a ring, which I have in my saddlebag if you would like to see it. Maeve laughed, a sound that broke through months of grief and uncertainty. I would like to see it very much. He kissed her then, on the porch of her father's general store, where it had all begun, and when they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, both smiling like fools, Maeve took his hand and led him inside. I made stew, she said. Would you like some? Samuel Harding looked at the woman who had saved him, who had loved him when he was too broken to love himself, who had refused to let him push her away forever. Yes, he said. I would like that very much. They married in December, when the first snow fell. Maeve cooked their wedding dinner herself, and Samuel ate every bite, and the life they built together was full of warmth and laughter and love that never again went unanswered.